Steve always believed his marriage was as solid as a rock. 25 years with Megan, overcoming challenges, creating memories, and building a life together. He never imagined that a simple birthday barbecue would shatter everything. It was a sunny Saturday, and Steve was excited. He was turning 43, and Megan had organized a barbecue at their home to celebrate. The house was filled with friends and family. The smell of grilled meat filled the air, and the sound of laughter and music echoed through the backyard. Megan was radiant, moving among the guests with a bright smile on her face. Steve felt lucky to have her by his side, but there was something in the air that he couldn't quite explain. Pete, an old college friend, showed up at the barbecue. They hadn't seen each other in years, and Steve was genuinely happy to catch up. However, something about the way Pete and Megan interacted made him uneasy. A lingering glance here, a subtle smile there. Steve tried to ignore it, but that strange feeling wouldn't go away. As Steve cut the cake, he caught Megan and Pete exchanging meaningful looks. A chill ran down his spine, but he decided not to ruin the mood. "I'm just imagining things," he thought, trying to convince himself. But that seed of doubt had already been planted. In the days that followed, Steve began to notice changes in Megan's behavior. She was more distant, spending hours on her phone and leaving the house without much explanation. "I'm just taking care of some personal things," she'd say, always with a forced smile. Steve tried not to worry, but that uneasy feeling in his chest only grew. One night, while Megan was in the shower, Steve saw her phone light up with a notification. It was a message from Pete. "We need to meet tomorrow. We have to figure this out." Steve's heart raced. He didn't want to invade her privacy, but the suspicion was too strong to ignore. The next day, Steve decided to follow Megan. He watched her enter a cafe and sit at a table in the back, and there was Pete waiting for her. Steve observed from a distance, his heart pounding. They laughed, talked in hushed tones, and at one point, Pete placed his hand over Megan's. Steve felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. That night, Steve confronted Megan. "What's going on between you and Pete?" he asked, trying to stay calm. Megan denied everything, saying he was being paranoid. "Pete is just a friend, Steve. You're imagining things." But Steve wasn't convinced. Steve decided to dig deeper. While Megan slept, he went through her phone and found hotel receipts and compromising messages. A mix of anger and sadness washed over him. He didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was right there in front of him. In one of the messages, Megan had written, "We need to tell him soon. We can't hide this forever." Steve froze. What were they hiding? He needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it was. Steve hired a private investigator. He needed answers, and he couldn't rely on his suspicions alone. The investigator followed Megan for weeks and discovered that she and Pete had been meeting regularly. There were photos of them together at hotels, cafes, and even a medical clinic. When the investigator handed Steve the final report, he was stunned. Among the documents was a medical report showing that Megan was pregnant. Steve did the math and realized it couldn't be his. They hadn't been intimate in months. With a heavy heart, Steve confronted Megan again. This time, he had proof. "Whose baby is it, Megan?" he asked, holding up the medical report. Megan stayed silent, her eyes filled with tears. Then Pete appeared at the door, admitting he was the father. "Steve, I'm so sorry," Pete said, his voice trembling. "It was a mistake, but now we have to deal with the consequences." Megan tried to explain, saying she loved Steve and that it had all been a terrible mistake. But Steve couldn't forgive her. The betrayal was too much. He decided it was time to move on. Steve filed for divorce and began rebuilding his life. He reconnected with friends and family he had neglected during his marriage. Slowly, he found the strength to heal. Megan and Pete tried to make their relationship work, but it didn't last. It was built on lies, and the weight of their betrayal consumed them. Megan was left alone, pregnant, and full of regret. Meanwhile, Steve found new love, someone who valued and respected him. He learned to trust again, and little by little, found the happiness he deserved. The story ends with Steve looking at the horizon, a faint smile on his lips. He had overcome the betrayal and found his personal victory. Life had tested him, but he emerged stronger than ever. If you enjoyed this emotional story of betrayal, resilience, and triumph, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more gripping tales like this one. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching, and remember, every storm eventually passes and the sun always shines again.